Hello everybody, Blue Dooley, and in this video we're back on the trailer. But I didn't get much done because, well, I ran out of wire, so I just changed my MIG wire out. Then I apparently lost the springs I was using, so I had to go to D&B and get some more springs and some more hardware, and that took a little while. And because apparently even center punching holes, they still don't end up where you want them to be, I've been a little frustrated. But we have made a teeny bit of progress. This is the spacing I'm going to use for the axles of the trailer. The first three are 3/4 of an inch apart, and then the rear one is going to be a full inch apart. As I've seen on a lot of trailers, the steer axle is mounted just a little bit further than a typical tandem spacing. And I'm cutting it out of 1/8 by 3/4, just cold rolled, just mild steel. So this side is what I marked out, and then I'd cut this other one second. So what we're going to do is use the thicker key stock I have. Let's find a piece of it down here. So this is 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, and is almost the same width as the spring perches on the trailer axles I have. So centered, that'll be pretty nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do just a swing arm like a typical semi-truck has. So this will just bolt straight to the axle. There'll be a pin through here, and then on the back will bring my spring. It'll kind of be like an air ride, and I actually have pictures of this trailer setup because airbag suspension really isn't on semi-trucks built to flex a lot. So it doesn't need to be overly complex. It just needs to be square. But the front axle on the trailer, this front axle and then this rear axle, both are going to be lift axles. So only these two will actually have load-bearing springs on them. These will actually just remain in contact by servo pressure and a spring on the linkage I use to raise and lower them. It's kind of scale, not going to be 100% scale, but unless you're really looking close at it, you're not going to notice the little bit of changes between what I'm building and a real one. So I need to figure out now how high the frame rail of the truck is, as that's going to determine how much mount I need for each axle off of this piece. And then I have springs somewhere. They're probably underneath all that shit over there. But we'll get some stuff cut out, and then we'll bring it back in after I start. I'll figure out how much drop I need off of these pieces, and I'll show you one, and then I'll get the rest done off camera. And like I said, I have springs, enough springs for these two axles. So these center two axles will get mounted up, and then we'll get the grand hauler and this trailer unit axles set up, how far apart it's going to be. And we'll make some progress yet on this. So I got this one tacked in. The bottom one is fully welded in, but when tacking this one in to start fully welding it, the welder quit feeding wire. And that's because the welder's out of wire. But thankfully, I have another spool of wire, so I can just switch them out and continue on. If I didn't have another spool of wire, this would be a very, very short video. So what I've got is the basic frame laid out. I got a piece of angle iron here in the front, a piece of angle iron here in the rear. So, as I mentioned, the rearmost axle is going to be a steering axle. this axle and this axle will be actually load carrying axles, and then this will be the other lift axle. And I don't have all the tires on or nothing like that. I did make it just a hair too wide, so I'm gonna have to space the wheels out just a tiny bit so they don't rub. Now, the beam here, I need to have it be just a hair above the tires, because I want the trailer to slope, be a little lower in the rear than the front. But I need him to be up at least just right at the top of the tire, so then when it connects to the trailer, those 1/8 inch square stock pieces will actually go across this, and that'll actually hold it to the frame. So what I need to do is get this spaced up. I'll use magnets and to the height I want it at, and then that way I can figure out how much material I need to have down to mount my suspension at. Don't have one out here at the moment. Maybe I do. Hang on a second. I do have a servo out here. So there'll be another piece of angle iron in front of the center of all the axles. So there'll be a piece of angle iron going across, and that is where the servo is going to mount to raise both outmost axles, or the very front axle and the very last axle. So that'll have an arm and it'll push forward, and through some linkages it'll raise the two outmost axles, or the front and rear axle, and that'll do my lift axle on the trailer. And again, as I said, these two axles will actually have springs in them for suspension. So I'm going to magnet these up, and we'll get a height and then figure out how much material I need to cut. And again, the key stock here, we'll just have a bolt going to the chassis, and then on the back here I'll probably have a bolt for the spring, and then I'll probably use quarter stock on the back here to just make little spring tabs. Nothing super fancy, but it should work the way I'm hoping it to. After some swearing and drilling some holes, I didn't get everything lined up quite as nicely as I had hoped, because apparently even center punching holes, they still don't go where I want them to go. But I have two of my suspension arms done and bolted to the rear suspension frame, we're gonna call it. Now, for the height I want and the length of the springs I have, going under the axle seems to be the ideal way to do it. Now, as you can see, the axles, the suspension arm goes down a little bit, and that's okay, because these springs I have, all right, tuck in there where I want you to go and stay. That's not going to happen, apparently. And that's why, being short-tempered occasionally. So I got two different spring rates. I got these that are okay. Oops. Let's get you in there where you can see. So with the beam under the axle, these I'll make a little spring pad, and then that'll raise this frame up to the height I want it to be at. If I went over axle, these springs would be too tall and I'd get into my belt. Now I could cut these, or go over the top of the axle and then cut them, weld kind of an L to get the height. But spring under I think would work really well, since The best way would actually to go straight through the axle, like center this square piece and go straight through that. But I think there's an axle shaft and a bearing in the way, so that's not going to work. But this is basically replace this spring, coil spring, with an airbag. That's trailer suspension. It's that simple. There really is nothing to an air ride suspension. One bolt on a real trailer will be straight, and then the other side will be a cam bolt, and that cam bolt will move the axle enough. That's how you get it aligned. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get more precise holes drilled in these damn key stock, because that's really kind of holding me back at the moment, is getting precision holes. But we got the grand hauler still on the bench, so let's kind of string some tape and we'll show you kind of how this whole setup's going to work. Now the question is there enough structure here for you to see? So, fifth wheel plate, the top beams come to about this center axle or middle set of tandems. And then the trailer is going to be about 48 inches total, as I believe, I'll have to redo my math, but I think 48 inches is a scale, 53 foot. But yeah, I really can't do much until I get the suspension holes drilled correctly so all the axles are straight and it swings. And it's just been super hot, so I hadn't really gotten as much done as I wanted anyways, but having to go buy hardware and then getting frustrated and not being able to drill holes correctly kind of ruins your progress, at least if you're short-tempered like me. So that's going to do it for this video. I apologize it being short, but it's hot and I'm kind of aggravated, so we're going to call it a day and go take a shower. But be sure to subscribe so you can eventually see this thing done, and like, because likes help the channel out with the YouTube algorithms. We'll catch you in the next one.